Hi, my name is Helen from A Paper Paradise. I've been making cards, invitations and teaching for over 13 years now. Today we'll be making this card. The stamp set we'll be using is Waterfront, one of my favourites in the New Occasions catalogue on page 48. So you can do quite a bit with the stamp. The card is Whisper White, thick card, measuring 210mm by 148 and scored with the Simply Scoring tool. Now I've just scored that right in the centre there on the 105 mark. Now I've got the metric board slid into the normal scoring board, which is all in inches. I bought the metric one because I was brought up on metric and I follow that a lot easier than inches. So it also has the mark on the board saying 105mm to make it easier for you. Then we need a basic black, and that measures 99 by 142mm. This gives you a 3mm border around the card, and you'll see that once we put it all together. Also have a piece of white, Whisper White, measuring 128 by 93mm. This card is thinner than the main Whisper White. There are two, Stampin' Up have two different types of Whisper White. I find this doesn't bulk up the card as much as using the thicker card, but you can use the thicker card, it doesn't really matter. Before starting with photopolymer stamps, which are the stamps that we'll be using today, we need a bit of padding behind them. Today I'm just using a mouse bat, but I do usually use my piercing mat as well. So anything that's sort of a bit spongy to give you that extra sponge, because there's no sponging behind photopolymer stamps. So to start with, we start with the mountains. So I'll just pop this aside so we don't end up with ink all over that one. And we'll pop that, and we'll pop him aside as well. Move the card, we don't need that at the moment. So we'll start with the Sahara sand and the mountains. So the mountains look like that sort of stamp. There are two stamps that I always seem to get muddled up. One is slightly larger, so we want the smaller mountain looking stamp. Just open up the Sierra sand. Now I'm popping the mountain sort of midway. Now I have a little saying that I usually teach my students in my class when I go and stamp images. To get an excellent image, I usually tell my students to repeat "I love Helen" 3 times, and if I feel the love, the image will work out. But you can always replace that with your own name and give yourself a bit of love instead. It's a bit warm in Melbourne at the moment, so they're sticking a little bit. So I'm just above halfway. So the mountains are sort of look like they're in the distance. So I'm doing 3 of them, and I'm doing the middle one I did slightly lower, and the next one I'll do slightly higher. Give that sort of effect of closer and further away. So we'll close him up so we don't dry him out, and our next step is to use the dark green underneath the mountains there. So I'm using garden green, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this 2 ends. There's a slightly fatter end at one end and a skinnier end at the other end. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the slightly thicker end closer just butting up next to the middle mountain and just overlapping on that last mountain I stamped. I'll try not to wobble my stamp too much because I notice that I've got a bit of ink on my clear ink pad. We can get rid of that with a bit of baby wipe in a minute. So now I'm just going to put a bit more green, just sort of to halfway, because we're going to put the water in there soon. So I'm going with the thinner end this time, pointing towards the centre. I'm going to repeat that on the other side. So the thicker end, butting up against the mountain, giving myself a bit of love there. And then, it doesn't matter if it slightly overlaps a little bit, sort of gives that shadowing effect again, and so that will pop him away. And our next step is then we need to put the water in. So I'm using Island Indigo. We use quite a few different colour stamps in this. There's a card image. So ink them up. My stamps are still fairly new, so I don't need to put too much effort into getting. As you can see, if I put too much effort in, I end up with it on my block as well. So I want to sort of go into the middle, close up to that green, and just pop them down there. Again, try not to wobble your stamp. The more we wobble it, the more we'll get a blurry image as well. And then pull the stamp straight up. Okay. Now we just need to do a lighter grass, and I'm using Lemon Lime Twist. And the one I'm using, the stamp that I'm using, it looks like a squished up Z shape. Now I'm just going to be twisting this around and overlapping with the other green. Just again, it sort of gives you that shadowing effect. And get in close to the water. It doesn't matter if you don't get too close to the water. We'll be using an aqua brush to add a bit of detail around that river there. So just backwards and forwards until we sort of have that area covered. And it doesn't matter if there's some white patches. Again, it just adds to the effect of the shadowing, makes it a little bit more realistic. And then we just need to do the other side. Again, just backwards and forwards. I find this quite relaxing to do. I'm not one of these people that can just sit in front of the television, so I just enjoy doing something as simple as this, that I can just, doesn't take too much thinking power. There we are, very happy with that. So again, those white patches I'm going to fix up near the end of this. Our next step is to add in our trees, which will be done in Old Olive. Old Olive seems to be one of my favourite greens. It just seems to work for a lot of projects. I'm going to go slightly off, so I'm not going to get all 3 trees in there. And doing it near the bottom of the green, of the light green as well, just to give that a effect of distance and that the trees are closer. And I'm just holding my stamp fairly firmly between my 2 fingers and just lightly pushing, making sure that the centre is also marking the page. So our next step is, I'm just going to add a little bit of extra to the water, just to give it a bit more life, like it's splashing around. And I'm using Night of Navy, just to add that. And using in the stamp set, there's a little dot one. So I'm just going to put a few little dots in there. Now, this is just a bit of my artistic bent. You don't have to add this if you don't want to. I just thought it made it a little bit more interesting. So we'll close that up. And you can add as many or as less. I just thought it was kind of nice just to bring a bit of the colour down the bottom, because I purposely left most of that white. So my last little bit of stamping on here is our sun. Now this can be done as high or as low as you want to. I'm just going to pop him in between those two mountains just up there. Press them fairly firmly. I like Curry Crush because it gives you that sort of yellowy orangey look in the sky. I think it looks a fairly realistic sort of sun. Now the stamps do have that sort of texture where you get different blends in it. See the lighter patches in the mountains and in the sun. That's just the way the stamp is designed. You can stamp it twice to get a deeper colour if you wanted to. Now our final little touches, I'm just going to grab my garden green again, and I'm going to squeeze the ink pad like so and open it up, just so we get a little bit of ink on the ink pad there. And I'm going to get my aqua brush. I'm just going to pick up some of that colour, and I'm just going to make it so it looks like there's a bit of a bank there, and just blend it into the other green as well, and just blend it in through there. So it looks like you've sort of got a deeper colour, bit of shadowing again around the river. So it just doesn't look like it's sitting on top of the grass. I'm just going to do a little bit of squiggle near the trees just to give it a little bit more shadow, a bit more interest. Again, you can add this or leave it out, it doesn't really matter. So again, just really loose, don't have to be too precious about it. Because I want it to sort of give the effect that it is a painting rather than a photo or anything like that. So I'm pretty happy with that. So I'm just going to get rid of the green and just wipe it on my scrap paper I have underneath. And get rid of all the green, make sure it's nice and clean, because my next step is I want to now do the sky. So I'll close that up, and I'm going to use a soft sky. And again, I'm just going to squeeze the ink pad like that and get some of the colour on the lid there. Get my aqua brush out. I'm just going to lightly, because I think it looks a bit plain, just the white. Looks like I might have a bit of green up in the sky as well there. Kind of looks like a little bird, so I'll leave him there. If I was really worried, I could probably just trim that up a little bit. So I'm just going to work. I'm not going to get too close to where I've stamped, because I don't really want to smudge that and blend it. Just want to add a bit of interest, so it's not just a plain white sky. Again, just wiping your aqua brush on some scrap paper until it runs clear, then you know that it's clean for another project. So you just got a very, very light colouring on that sky there. And that's all the inking that we need to do, so I'll just pop him aside. Now we're going to start constructing it all together. I'm just going to move this out of my way. And I'm going to cut this up. As you can see on this, I've done it into panels. Now luckily I am more out of fluke than actual planning. I ended up making I noticed that the cut mark is right at the edge of your scoring guillotine. So I'm just going to pop my card, and this is measurement is 32. So I'm just going to cut one panel, and I'm just going to move it up to that point again. And nice cut. So a really handy tool to have. Makes life so much easier. Straight lines rather than using scissors all the time. So now I've got it into my 4 parts. Just make sure I have it all in order. What you might want to do at home is perhaps let it dry for a couple of minutes as well, because I can still feel that that's still a little bit damp, but it's not too bad. I can still work with it. So we're just going to pop this onto our basic black. Now I want to I'm just going to pop it on, and what I'm going to try and achieve is like 3 millimeters, so a very small border, but also in between the two cards as well. So I'm just using my tear and tape and popping that onto the back of the card. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to gently place it onto the back of the basic black, and that will enable me to be able to move it if I need to. So I'm just judging it. What I usually do is I'm looking at the top, and then I'm looking at the 2 sides, and I'm going, okay, they all match. So just lightly pop it on there, and then I'll get the next one and pop him on. Really easy to tear, so you don't have to worry about having scissors in your hands as well as trying to hold the paper together. I'm just popping the next one, again 3 millimeters, making sure it's even with the top and the bottom. So with this project it's quite good if you don't press too hard. Just lightly place them on the card until you're absolutely sure that everything's in the right place and everything looks straight and even. I'm very happy with that. So our next thing to do is to put some dimensionals on the back. So I'm just going to pop a couple on each side. I'm going to put one in the middle just to give it a bit of a lift in the middle so it doesn't flop down. And just get our white, Whisper White card. Take the backs off the dimensionals. And pop them onto the card. Again, I've just done a 3mm border. Push him firmly down, make sure he's all sitting down. I'm just going to now do the final thing, and that's to put the thank you. I'm just using some Whisper White scrap. I seem to have quite a few of those just lying around. I'll just place the mat underneath it. So I'm just going to pop this on here using Sonara sand, the same colour as I used for the mountains. So just placing it in and just sort of stamp them in the middle there. Peel them off. I just my punch looks like a triangle, and he does a nice little banner type stamp. So just getting it in the middle there, and hopefully he's straight. And just cut it. I'm just going to put one little dimensional on there. The great thing about Stampin' Up is they have got the two size dimensionals. So when you've got tiny little pieces, we've got the little dimensionals. I just popped him just in the corner there, like that. All done now. Thank you for watching. Please leave me a comment below, and bye for now.